Welcome back, South Philly Sauce, an Audacy original brought to you by 94 WIP and Jack Daniels, Ashlyn, Sullivan, Al Morganti here with you, recapping a wild weekend, literally, for the Flyers. It started off good on Saturday, ended very poorly on Sunday, and getting ready for a very big week with this Flyers schedule. Al, let's start with Saturday.
Hey, why not?
It went great. It was their best game of the season, a big one over the Wild. We saw a ton of goals. We saw some defensive structure that could have been better. And I was encouraged thinking, okay, this momentum certainly will carry into Sunday.
You were wrong.
And I was so wrong. It was a disaster on Sunday.
It was not, it went from very good to, oh no, not again. And Saturday is what you really wanted to see. Excitement in the building, goals, Couturier having a big game. Michkov looked terrific. Konechny was awesome. It's like, oh wow, maybe they're on the right track here. Maybe it's going to turn everything around. But more than anything, Ashlyn, you could just feel the energy that was going on. It's like, this is after the first couple of games at home with hardly any goals, no reason to even get out of your seat for a couple of games. And this was exciting and figure, all right, just carry this thing over. And then Sunday somebody sent a defibrillator, but it was too late.
Yeah.
Really late in the game. So they managed to make it closer than it really was. They were outplayed by Montreal in large portions of the game. And they were also very honest about it afterwards, that they didn't have it. And I'm starting to worry if they really are going to have it many, many nights this year.
Yeah.
They really have to. This is a team that still is going to everybody's going to have top effort almost every night to get through it. So we'll see what happens. But there was some good signs and new goaltender, which was nice to see.
Yeah, I think the biggest concern is we go back to, especially at the end of last season, and we talked about it on every show, how the one thing about the Flyers is that they worked harder than anybody else. But you and Scotty always warned, how long can you keep this effort going when you don't get the results you want, which is making the playoffs? How long can you realistically every game give 110%, knowing that's the only chance really you have success for this season? And it's not like they're going out there and they're not trying. It's just not the same will to win that we saw at the end of last season. And I was talking to Garnet Hathaway about this pregame Sunday, and he told me he thinks the biggest difference about this year's team is it's very crucial that they start fast. He said there is a little bit of a lack of confidence right now, and he thinks that's why Saturday went so well, because it was boom, right away. And it's, oh my gosh, we're beating a Wild team that's coming here, hasn't lost in regulation, and we're handing it to them in the first period. They had that juice, that confidence. Sunday, you go down a goal, and it's hard not to feel that here we go again feeling.
Yeah, and it's not new like last year where they caught a lot of teams by surprise early in the year. It was a great start. It was a really good start. And all the national media was like, well, the Flyers are very interesting, very hard to play against. And they became the darlings of a lot of people. And what is really interesting here is we were warned sort of by front office management, Danny Briere, even Torts, that, well, they just can't pick up where they left off. That's not the way it's going to happen. Not that last year ended great, but their point total, okay, let's just build from there. And I think they were trying to get the message across that we have to build from zero. What they did last year doesn't count. You don't start at the middle of the mountain.
Right.
So I think they got caught there, and they're not going to catch anybody by surprise. And frankly, trying to compare to last year is preposterous because the goaltending situation's so different. And you really have to go from the beginning of the game. And we'll see what happens here, but you have to dig down, and if they're going to compete with the better teams in this league, it has to start from puck drop.
It does, and the effort from immediate, like you say, puck drop, and the biggest word, it's definitely the buzzword of the weekend, is disconnect. It just doesn't feel like everyone is pulling in the same direction, and you're seeing that on 5-on-5. I thought Garnet Hathaway gave a great answer on Sunday. He always gives great answers. But a lot of guys were saying, yeah, disconnect. But when you think about that, okay, well, what does that mean? And with him, he was saying how it's guys just not pulling in the same direction. And you can tell that, and it's pretty clear that guys are gripping their sticks too tight. They're trying to do too much. That it's a little bit of a desperation. I have to score right now, where he says on Saturday against the Wild, we allowed the game to come to us. And that's kind of the only game we really saw that.
Yeah, disconnect has become the new word, not just here, but I was reading some Islanders stuff, listening to some quotes from them. It's like when the team loses now, it's the new term.
Well, what does that even mean?
Well, for the Flyers, it means it starts in one zone and goes through them. It starts in your defensive zone and then come up the ice altogether. I think if you want to look at disconnect and watch it, it's 5-man units. Way back in the day, the Soviets at the time, before there was the Russians, the Soviets, they'd come over and play in 5-man units. And I think that's that's when you look and when the team is really connected, you're coming up, the gaps are good or whatever, there's no separation, you're coming up ice together, you're getting out of the zone quickly. And that, Hathaway put it really well. And Hathaway speaks like a coach very often, to come in and not just have a hollow word, disconnect. Like there's certain words that people just use, and I don't even think that
they know what it means. Yeah,
it's like, well, something's wrong. It must be this. It's basically, it's not me, it's you. No, but he put it in really good terms on what's missing with that team right now. It's a confidence thing. It's the defenseman. A lot of it just has to do is coming up as a unit, coming into the zone. I think that last year they just used their speed more to come in. This year they're setting up in the zone. They're coming in a little late. There's no connection, literally, between the forwards when they go deep and then the defensemen. So I think that's part of what's going on. Some teams going through it, Flyers especially.
Yeah, and I think as a whole, when you talk about, John Tortorella especially has talked about puck support, where a lot of times you feel like they're late to a play, or you're seeing something that is happening or it's building. You're like, okay, if Tippett gets here, this is going to happen. And it's like they're a second late for everything lately. Yeah,
Tippett, I would not know what to do as a coaching staff with him, because he gets a lot of shots. So he's in position.
Got to keep him in.
He's got, but the shots, they're just wide. They're over the net or whatever. But I don't want to dissuade him from getting there and taking them. I often think just a pass-off pad situation with him, just shoot for, you don't often want to say shoot for the goalie's pads or try to hit the logo or whatever, but I would think at times with him that might be the case. It's really interesting because we've now seen John Tortorella a couple of years, right, on how he reacts. And a lot of people wait for post-game to say, oh my God, they played bad, he's going to lower the boom. And I think when you really look at this and you see his reaction to not good games, and he hasn't gone squirrel on him, right? I mean, hadn't gone crazy.
No, it's been pretty calm.
I think he and the organization realize we got a long way to go down the middle. It really isn't going to do us any good to jump on people here because it's not going to. Forster is a guy who hasn't carried over from last year, guys like that. And I think they realize they can't damage things by howling about something. I think the message is quite clear that there's a lot of work to do.
Well, if anything, I think it's a little bit, and I always thought they were just being guarded in training camp, where Danny Briere and John Tortorella were saying, we're not getting free agents. It was always like, okay, that's nice, but we know they're going to do better, right? And it's almost like they saw before us that last year there was that effort and it just hasn't seemed to carry over. It's like, no, we still, it was almost like everyone kind of came back down to earth a little bit.
Yeah, it's like you can't do the projection. And Mitchkov being here, I mean, huge and that's what's the most perplexing, if you really want to look at have they not achieved where they should, because Mitchkov's been everything and then some. I mean, aside from the fact that he isn't, for a lot of people, not as fast as they thought, with his skates, but I mean, how creative he's been. The power play, it's everything you expected for him to be. So I mean, that's where it's the most weird that they added this weapon, and but everybody else hasn't taken those 3 steps forward. I mean, you can go down the lineup and you'll see one after another. Well, this isn't. If you were looking and projecting, I hope you put everything in pencil, because if you had pen, you got a mess on your hands.
You do. But here's why I'm encouraged is I think as a whole, if they can build on confidence, if they can get a couple of wins in a row, I think this is a completely different story. This is just a team. They have to prove it to themselves. And it's very clear John Tortorella and the coaching staff's message to this team is that get pass off pads. It's just get to the net. I mean, Sean Couturier told me about it on Saturday. We've had plenty of guys say, this is what we're doing. We're changing our offensive approach. And when it works, right? So I wouldn't write it off, because we've seen Tippett before where he goes to these roller coasters, but when he clicks for a while.
Yeah. And in this league, let's face it, to be in the playoff picture, which is what you want coming toward the end of the year, it's a league where I think everybody's 500 now, save 3 or 4 teams, hot, cold, right, very bottom.
Winnipeg.
It's so, with the point for a loss that you can get, it's hard not to be in that mix if you're a decent squad.
Yeah.
And, I think all you have to do is, as you mentioned, you get 2 wins in a row. Look at Montreal. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, they were win a couple of games in a row, everything changes.
Yeah.
And that's what they're looking at. Unfortunately for the Flyers, the week coming up, it might be tough to get those wins in a row.
It really does. And now you look at the encouraging signs, at least coming up with this week of these really tough games. You heard John Tortorella on Sunday postgame say Travis Sanheim is playing the best he's seen in the 3 years he's been here. And what a difference from the way Torts talked about Travis Sanheim when he first got here to now.
Yeah.
It has been a progression of a relationship.
I love it when we do something on the show and when doing pregame during between periods. And like I remember, the last game I was mentioning Sanheim. I said, well, I don't know, but I thought he had a great weekend. I'm like, but it didn't show up necessarily. Saturday, I'm like, I thought he was just terrific. And then Torts comes out and starts. He's been terrific. He's been great.
Yeah.
He's just a horse. He's played so many minutes, kills penalties, and now he's going into the zone and taking some chances. I think he's got a chance to make the Four Nations tournament Team Canada as the depth defenseman, maybe. I mean, there's so many great defensemen. But I think I never would have thought that. And you really look at it, he almost left here. They were fortunate that a deal fell through, basically.
Yeah.
But more than that, it's mostly on him for being really in shape, getting in shape, unbelievably in shape, and being able to log these minutes that he has. Tough minutes, too, to keep him in games. So to me, he's been the brightest light so far.
Yeah, and it's been impressive, especially with Cam York being out 2 weeks here around that time. When you heard that, you thought, oh, man, they're in trouble. And I've been really encouraged with Rasmus Ristolainen as well, that it really hasn't been that, oh, my gosh, what are we going to do without Cam York, that you thought it was at first.
No, Risto had a good game on Saturday. He's in a spot now where he can make a difference. He's a physical player. I think he's a much better positional player than he was previously, and yeah, I think he's healthy now and able to play a physical game. So he will be a big part in trying to stabilize, because York, his absence is big.
It is.
I mean, let's face it. I mean, anytime you lose one of your top defensemen, but he's becoming more and more important as he becomes more mature player. So Risto, selfishly for him, this is a great opportunity to reestablish how important he can be to the team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now there has been a lot of shake-up with the goaltending situation. It's been a moving part so far this season. We saw Kolosov come in on Sunday, played really well. I mean, you heard Scott Laughton go to bat from post-game that he gave them a chance, and we're not sure what's going to happen with Ivan Fedotov. As of now, they're keeping 3 goaltenders on the roster, but when Torts was asked about why is Kolosov starting on Sunday, he said because Fedotov hasn't played well enough. So that's kind of all you need to know about the situation.
Yeah, I mean, Fedotov really struggled.
Yeah.
I mean,
he just doesn't look ready.
Well, no, goaltenders like to break down goaltenders. If you're, a lot of the analysts are previous goaltenders, they come down and they were at a loss for anything to try to, I mean, the average fan could just watch it and say, it's just not moving well. I mean, oftentimes people try to be funny and when they don't follow hockey, they just say, why don't you just get a big guy, put him in there and the puck will hit him. Well,
it's not that easy.
That's not the case. There was a big guy in there and the puck didn't hit him, and he looked uncomfortable in there, didn't move side to side.
Big.
Yeah. The really weird part is when you change goaltenders, the difference between these two is day and night.
Yeah.
It's like they're both kind of Russian, Belarusian and Russian. It's like they went over the seas to Eastern Europe and said, I'll take 1 extra large and 1 small. This guy,
Kolosov isn't even 6
now
foot.
You see, now he's a guy that if he makes mistakes, the fans will see an athletic guy going. It's what fans like to see, right? It looks like all effort,
diving,
this, that. No, not necessarily. Maybe out of position, and he was a couple of times. He's going to get beat east to west because he moves a lot.
Yeah.
The other guy's just big, and so. But the fans, it's like, well, there's big effort right there. I'm not saying that the other guy is just he's huge.
Yeah.
He can't look like that. This guy's like flying and to the point where I wonder it's going to cost him at times. Mm-hmm. But to the fan, they're going to like this athleticism that he has, and it looks like a huge effort level, which. Let's face it, little guys in sports always get the benefit. I mean, we got Allen Iverson in goal. Basically, is what we got going on here.
Yeah, and it's going to work for a little bit here, having 3 goaltenders. Torts was asked about that as well, and he said it doesn't really matter what I want because it's not typical, but with Cam York out, they brought up Emil Andre, so this can work for the time being, but eventually you come to the realization keeping 3 that you're down a skater doing this.
You don't want 3 goaltenders.
No.
I mean, I know they can say it, but it makes practice weird. I don't know what that dynamic is there, but I can't think it's good.
Yeah.
When somebody's playing when your games or whatever.
Yeah.
My vote, if I was in them, would be to let's get down to 2 and let's get this settled one way or the other.
Yeah, but when you look at that, in the clear answer we think is to send Fedotov down. It doesn't seem like it's that easy with the contract they gave him.
No, but eventually your locker room will decide. You can't, if your team's not confident.
It seems like they're not with Fedotov.
Yeah, and nobody will say it, and
of course
they play
not.
hard anyway. But I think that will be what finally establishes this, and we'll see what the other kid might melt down. It's a tough league, especially with these games here coming up. Now, fortunately, there's no.
I would think
these are spaced out.
I think Arson's probably going to start all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
You get 3. Although Halloween night maybe.
Just to spice it up.
That's right.
Well, I think Torts says this about every single position, but if Kolosov and they're giving him the opportunity on a silver platter, go win the job.
Yeah.
Like, do what you need to do, and this is your job.
Yeah, and that's they give the other guy had the same chance.
Heck yeah.
So basically, you've got this is an opportunity. It's handed it to you. And Arson's got to be. He's been okay. I think he's better than his numbers are, but with this team. You got to be really good.
Yeah.
To be the starting goal if they're going to have big success.
If they're going to have a chance, right? And we look at this week ahead, which is pretty brutal for the Flyers. I mean, we've said that every week to start the season, but this week we really mean it. When they go to Boston, then you have St. Louis at home on Halloween, then you have Boston again on Saturday. A lot of fans are really excited for that Boston game on Saturday. I'm getting texts out the wahoo for tickets. Like, they're fired up for this game.
Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, it's going to be cool, but a game in the Garden with the way they played on Sunday, you better hope you played like Saturday and not Sunday.
Yeah, Boston had a little bit of a rough start. They kind of managed to they always manage to get it back together, and they've got star players.
Yeah.
The one thing about the Bruins, though, is Marchand is such a pest. He can drag the other team into it, too. He can really make you so mad that it gets you back into a game. I mean, he was yelling. He and his coach were going back and forth last week over a mistake that he made. He's just so emotional about everything. I would love him in Tortorella on.
Oh my gosh, that'd be must-see TV.
It's kind of like TK a little bit, but this would be I think that'll get them into it. But this will be a pretty telling week on where they're going to go.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll see what happens.
We won't because we have.
Why?
Because we have to mention the one guy that has kind of been missing in action here.
Oh, right. How could I forget the Lost in the Sauce? Yes, Lost in the Sauce, and really lost, is Morgan Frost, to the point where he's down to 4th line, and this is a guy that we said this is make or break your season. If a guy like Morgan Frost, he's in that tier of guys, they got to take the step forward, and now Morgan Frost is your 4th line.
4th line, minus player, he's literally lost on the ice at times, it looks like. But annoyingly, when you get down in the game and you look down the bench and you say, well, who could be a game breaker? And you go, well, I'd be him. Or if they ever get into a shootout or something, it's like, well, there's the guy. But I wonder how many more opportunities there's going to be. I mean,
we say this every year.
Every year, it's like this guy's. You can see that there's talent there, and then he'll just be literally not have a man on coverage, and it's not through lack of trying, I guess. I think he overthinks certain situations, and plus, when you're a guy like that, you kind of want to lurk a little bit, but if it goes wrong, it really shows up, and I don't know how much more patience they're going to have. I mean, you need them in terms of, okay, let's come back, but if you get in a spot where you can't even trust that, then you're not going to see much ice time, and I think he's at that point now where we'll see how much ice time he gets.
Yeah, I'm curious because Torts has been pretty honest with us, especially last week, about that tier of guys.
Yeah.
Frost, Joel Farabee was a great example where Torts basically said, if I don't see more from him, he's going to sit. He told us that. But then I thought Farabee had a pretty good weekend where he kind of saved his ice time then. Yeah. That's what Frost needs to do.
And we'll see what happens. They've been pretty careful not to, as we mentioned earlier, not to really hammer a guy for whatever, because they know everybody's struggling.
But sometimes Torts can't help himself.
Yeah, I think that may be the case. We'll see what happens. He's got the potential to have a big week and turn everybody's opinion.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. The Flyers, a big week for them as they get ready for a Bruins game on Tuesday and then back home in Philly. Thanks for tuning into South Philly Sauce, an Audacy original, brought to you by 94 WIP and Jack Daniels. We'll see you later this week.